I think Black History Month is really important, especially here in the UK. Growing up as a mixed race individual, sometimes it's hard to see yourself in different situations or also to find out what your history is. Oftentimes here we look over to America for answers for that. We've seen that with the Black Lives Matter movement and we see it with civil rights. We often refer to Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and people like that, but we don't talk a lot about the civil rights movement in the UK. So I think the addition of UK Black History Month and how much it's grown in the last few years is so important for young BAME individuals growing up in both Scotland and the UK. I think it's really important to me as an individual that we have Black History Month. I know for myself, in my own education, not much was spoken about both Black history and African culture. So I was left growing up in a very white-centric educational system without much understanding of what my background was or what my place, both in history and in society now, was to the wider picture. So as we become a more diverse country, it's important that we have history and we have education that suits the needs of everybody within that educational system, whether it be black, Asian, mixed or white, Scottish, English, whatever it happens to be. And I know that it was something that I found very difficult in school to find anything relevant to me, even in terms of when you see things on TV or in magazines, you didn't see people that look like you. I'm obviously mixed race, so I have lighter skin. I have a mix of both black and white, and I grew up in Scotland. I have a lot of advantages even with that. That I'm more likely to see someone closer to my skin tone or with my own accent. For darker skinned individuals, that will be so much harder, and that's why it's important as a mixed race individual or anyone that is mixed race out there or lighter skinned that we use our voices to uplift those of people who with darker skin who their voices are often unheard. I think Black history is still so important to me even now because, as I said, I didn't really have that education growing up, so it was something I had to look for myself. And I think it's great now that it's become more available within schools and universities. And certainly I'm still learning. I still find out things all the time. I never thought about being black or what that meant to me or even being African descent for the first part of my life because I hadn't had to, and it was sadly like negative situations that forced that upon me. It was a lot of times you hear people say, well, why do you define yourself as black or why do you always talk about blackness? But very often in the life of someone in the UK, that blackness is given to you. It's something that someone else decides for you. Someone comes along one day and says, no, you're black, you're different, you're the other. And that's why it's so important to continue learning, not just for people who aren't of colour, but people of colour. It's important that they learn. Because we aren't one monolithic group, we are our own individuals and we have our own experiences in life. And for all the experiences that I've had, it may differ from person to person. So it's important that within that education we continue to grow and be able to see ourselves as individuals. Yeah, I think there's a lot of inspiration for me from Black history in many, many forms. And I suppose at an early age it was much broader because we didn't have much resources on what that meant within the context of the UK. We did look out with the UK and we looked at America and we saw Martin Luther King and the work he did and I Have a Dream speech, obviously in particular in that school. But as I got older, I took on other influences. I'm a huge fan of James Baldwin and his work. As a musician, Stevie Wonder, he had so many messages for his songs and he really thought. And something I didn't know for years was that Happy Birthday was a song about trying to have Martin Luther King Day, because you just hear it at first and you just take it for what it is, and there's such a deeper meaning to that song. Again, being young and seeing someone that looks almost vaguely like you when you saw the early days of Michael Jackson and he had his afro, I would look at that and go, maybe there is hope for someone like me out there. And that's what I mean. It's so important to be able to see yourself places. And Michael Jackson was the first black artist to be in the cover of the Rolling Stone, for example. A lot of these bursts are still so recent in history for black culture. And I certainly took inspiration from a lot of people like that, a lot of the strong leaders. And later on in life, Malcolm X, for us all, he was such a strong individual and he instilled this sense of pride. And Martin Luther King had that hope and that faith, whereas Malcolm X had that fight. And that fight you need sometimes to get by and to fight for your place and your right to exist. So there's such a wide, varied group of people who inspire you. And obviously later in life, you will look close to them. And I hope that for the next generation, they're inspired by people from Britain because they know. Sadly, I felt like that wasn't something that was available to me. And That's why Black History Month in the UK is so important.